E.T Mensah, right?
Yes.
E.T Mensah. You said something off air which I thought was very interesting.
Yes.
You said E.T Mensah is to sports what Kwesi Boche was to finance.
Yes.
And that's a very interesting statement to make for people who were conscious of Ghana's politics in the 80s and early 90s. Because for a long time, Kwesi Boche was the Minister for Finance under the PNDC. Yeah. And he was the man you think about when you think about the economy. Yeah. Now, your argument is that E.T was for sports. How long was he in charge of that sector? Was it that long?
Well, E.T was sports minister until 2010.
Oh, serious?
Yes.
So under of course outside the Kufuor years.
Outside of the Kufuor years.
So even in the first mills,
yes,
he was still sports.
Yes.
Oh really?
Yes. No.
No, it will be up to Kufuor.
Yes.
Up to 99.
Up to 99.
Because after 99. Yes, because Mills didn't make E.T. I think it was some other people.
Yes.
So I think two people whose passing.
He became under Mills. He was employment and social welfare.
Yeah, and he was part of the three wise men. So two people whose passing, I think we should discuss briefly. The former first lady and then E.T Mensah. And I think this is important for younger people to just understand the context. Okay. Now, I think my views, which you have tidied up about the former first lady, was because prior to her coming, there was a very outgoing first lady, right? Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings, who sort of defined the role. So if you cover Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings and you cover Theresa Kufuor, they are very opposite. But I think you make the point that you don't need to be out there to make a difference, and you don't need to be in the limelight necessarily to be effective. So I take that point from you. A low-key first lady.
Very.
But effective nonetheless,
yes.
Which is your argument. Fine. Where do you place E.T Mensah? Because E.T Mensah depends on which year you were born and which story you are listening to. You could be thinking about him as sports minister, MP for Ningo Pram Pram, AMA mayor, or even University of Ghana accounts officer.
But I think...
Or Hartofuk mafia man, or Jacob Nette's great uncle. I mean, there are all kinds of things you can think about when it comes to E.T Mensah.
Well,
right?
I think what would define him will be Ningo Pram Pram, where...
He was there from 96?
Yes, and then...
When did Samuel George win? 2016? Yes. Or was it 2016? So E.T Mensah 96, so almost 20 years.
Yeah. They called him the Ningo Pram Pram Mugabe, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes. So 96 to 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012. So it was 2016 that Samuel George came.
Yeah.
Wow. And he was also education minister.
Yeah, but nobody would really recall.
So this is how I say. If you ask me an
education
education minister in my formative years, I'll think about Harry Sawyer.
Sawyer.
If you ask me about sports minister, E.T Mensah. Finance minister, Kwesi Boche.
Yes.
If you ask me for what was this guy's position? PV Obing. Presidential staffer.
He was presidential staffer, but he basically ran the country.
So he was like the...
That's Kujun Pieni.
Yeah. So in those days, who was the... So Obed Asama was the Attorney General. So Obed was Attorney General and Foreign Minister. Who was the guy in charge of trade, Dan Abodakwi, for many years. And then for... Which other portfolio is there even? In those days, in the Rawlings days, I'm trying to remember. Education, Harry Sawyer. E.T was sports.
Agriculture, I don't know.
Agric was Steve Obimpe.
Yes, Commodore.
I remember Steve Obimpe for Agric.
Who turned 88 last week.
Yes. Which other portfolio was important in those days? These days, the ministry is currently only have okay, it was Salia for transportation. It was Salia for transportation. And this is under Rawlings, whether NDC or PNDC. For many years, it was Salia. Which other ministry is there? Information Minister. Totobi Kwachi. Kofi Totobi Kwachi was information.
Yeah.
And the Rawlings years. Mary Grant was health, I think. No.
Yes.
Was it Mary Grant?
Yes.
Dr. Mrs. Mary Grant.
Yes, Dr. Mrs.
Yes. Health. There was also Miranda Greenstreet at some point, but it was Mary Grant. Yeah. Mary Grant was health. Which other position was there? And this is watching GTB News in the 80s.
Yes.
How well people could identify their ministers at the time.
If you mention health, Mary Grant. If you mention education, Harry Sawyer. If you mention sports, E.T Mensah. If you mention trade, usually Dan Abodakwi. Attorney General, Obed Asamoah. If you mention... What are the positions? I'm even forgetting. Where are the positions now? Which other positions in this government that is important? Agric we mentioned already. Steve Obimpe, right? Steve Obimpe. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so we'll try and sort of contextualize E.T Mensah. Yes, there was what's the name of this guy? Ahoy.
Yes.
I think the most popular Ahoy was the quiz. Atu Ahoy. But he was minister for something. What was he? Peter Bro was foreign affairs after Obed. But Atu Ahoy was something. Before he was tax something, but he was also a minister. You know? I forget what he was, but he was quite important in the.
Atu, wasn't it like energy?
Yes, fuel and power, energy.
Yeah,
Good. Energy was Atu Ahoy. Atu Ahoy was energy. Thank you for that one. Who was local government? Kwamina.
Kwamina, yeah.
He wrote a book on local governors in this town.
So I think I have the full list now. Kwamina Ahoy for local government. Atu Ahoy for fuel and power. We've mentioned Agric Obimpe.
Yeah.
We've mentioned trade. Abodakwi. We've mentioned I think we have the full list. It just tells you that in those days the minister was such a high profile position, and also there were not that many. And because the media was only one, we all knew who they were. These days, if I ask who's the deputy minister of railways, I'm not sure you know.
No.
Who's the deputy minister for Agric? I don't think you know. Who's the deputy minister? Who is the deputy minister for lands?
Deputy minister. It's not Owusu Benito.
Benito, you know
Yes,
Benito. Okay.
Benito.
Who's the deputy minister for trade?
Which of them?
Which of them? Because I know there's Crapper.
Okay, then you know.
And then
Once you know,
there's
who's the deputy foreign affairs minister?
Oh,
You don't know. You don't know.
can't
I don't
remember.
know.
In those days, I think it was Chambers. Chambers was former deputy education and then deputy trade in my years. So it seems as if right now the positions have become a bit low profile and there are too many. So I don't know. Or because it was a PNDC time, I don't know. Anyway, so we'll talk about E.T Mensah in a bit. And who was the most effective Rawlings minister? For those of you who are old enough to remember,
They can tell.
who was the most effective Rawlings minister? Who was the most effective Rawlings minister? And why was PV of being so admired? What was his? What did he bring to the table in those Rawlings years? This is for people who are aged above 40. If you are below 40, don't
And if
say
there's
anything.
anything I remember about P.V. Obiang was his ability to give speeches extempore.
Not only that, he could.
You invite him to whatever function it was. He would show up
it was
without a
brilliant.
script and still give a nice speech.
And the other thing was that when you go to, I sort of encountered him more in the later years of the Mills government when he became more like head of something. So he was more like a bigger man then. What you like about him was that he would make you feel comfortable in a meeting.
Right.
He was funny and he was always, he will
I
make
never-
you relax.
I never encountered him.
No.
Those circles.
He will make you relax. So I'm doing this random thing because of E.T, right? I'm asking those of you who remember the Rawlings, and this when I say Rawlings ministers, this is from PNDC, so P/NDC. So this is from 1983 or 82 properly, all the way to 1999. All right. Who was the most? I'm asking this question because of the 19 years of Rawlings, some people define the position, okay? And so if I ask you who is Attorney General, for many years, the only person to talk about is Obeda Samoa, all right? In the same way, Kwesi Botwe dominated the finance portfolio, although many people took over after him, he became the go-to person for finance. Is it possible to identify Rawlings' most effective minister? Maybe we'll take a vote for that. Emma Mitchell was also trade at some point. Okay.
But the reason why E.T gets
Why does E.T get the sports thing for you? Why did you say E.T? Why did E.T become your? Was he the longest serving?
yes,
Longest serving.
because when we say a country is a sporting country, it's something that is tangible, and there was and the moments at which we felt that Ghana was competitive, that things were happening, was during his time.
How long was
It
minister?
wasn't. I think it was based on the strength of his character rather than strong institutions. because
Yeah.
they should have outlived him. We would have had a much better system in place if it was just beyond him.
So when Rawlings was democratically elected president from 92 to 99, E.T was the sports minister.
Yes.
That's a long time.
Yes. The resources and
Wow.
the fund. We don't have the funding.
Was he sports minister in PNDC too?
I don't know if it was
Possibly.
secretary for sports.
Because when you see
check.
his profile, Minister for Youth and Sports 1993 to 2001, he was preceded by Arnold Quinn.
Queen. See,
Arnold Quinn.
another big name.
Wow. I'm getting some
But if you
votes
look at
for the most
if you look
effective
at-
Rawlings minister.
If you
by the
look
way.
at Ghana's achievements in track at the time,
Yeah.
and it's
Emmanuel
not-
Kufuor.
it's not the big ticket item.
Emmanuel Kufuor,
His ability to rally, keep
the
discipline.
Barcelona 92.
You know, and Ghana did well. We won.
Then
junior, we
under
won under 17,
and
the
1993,
Olympics.
93 we won under something.
Yes, we won under 17.
91, 93,
91.
and then under 20.
The under 20 we
finished
did
second.
Second.
Yes, we did a
20
couple of finals
finished
under him
second.
as well.
95, Ghana
We were pretty good at all
World
Africa
Cup.
games as well under him. Football thrived, and he loved his football, of course. So
Yeah.
a very interesting part of our domestic football
Yeah.
happened during that
Did
era.
Hearts of Oak won Champions League what year?
That's
2000. This was still under him because they handed over in 2001. And I recall the work he did because, Esperance was trying to bully us. And
he was
as
the
Minister
king
of Sports,
king of
E.T.
mafia.
would not allow.
Was the king of mafia.
You know, Charlie, but that Hearts team was great. So you think he's the most successful sports minister?
Not the most successful. I wouldn't, you see, because there were weaknesses. Okay. But in terms of being relevant, I think E.T Mensah is the most relevant sports minister we've had. Also because he served the longest. And also perhaps had more room to operate in terms of the sheer power that he had.
Do you remember who the GFA chairman was in the 90s?
We had quite a few, so we had...
Because I think Jaula worked as
Jaula.
GFA chairman at
Yes,
some
and
point.
him.
So had
Nyaho.
had Nana Sambu
No,
Butler,
Nyaho was GFA after Kufuor came.
Kufuor.
So Bru Butler,
Drew Butler.
Butler and Alhaji Jaola.
Yeah.
I think in those days we had a lot of strong leaders.
Yes.
Because we didn't have a lot of opposition. And we didn't have this thing where everything is debated in the media.
Yes.
So you had people who could basically take over
things.
and do things.
Yes. That's why I'm saying that he was the most, because of the power that he wielded at the time, he could get a lot of things done.
In terms of athletics, you said football, but what else? Boxing?
Boxing
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
Hockey
yeah,
was,
yeah,
hockey,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hockey was very
Yeah,
strong.
yeah, yeah,
Everything
yeah,
was
yeah.
strong.
Boxing was good.
Everything was strong.
Hockey was good. Hockey.
Everything was strong. The National Sports Authority was strong
Yeah,
at the time.
Yeah.
It is not what we have now. Yesterday today, I saw the sports minister opening another astroturf somewhere.
And the funny thing as well, a lot of the Rawlings ministers were very young when they started in the 80s. So
Yeah.
by the time they got to the 90s, they were quite experienced in the job.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take some votes for most effective minister at
Where we
Rawlings.
go?
It's a very unscientific poll, right? I'm just taking people's names based on what listeners who are aged above 35. I'm changing the standard. So I'm seeing Samuel Nyama Donko. He was a minister for health.
Yes.
I'm seeing Kofi Totobi Kwache. I am seeing Austin Game.
Labour?
I'm seeing Kwame Nahoy. I'm seeing Mahama Idrisu. From forever, he was defense minister. Forever.
Is that forever?
He was, Charlie Mahama Idrisu was the defense minister forever. Like, since I became conscious of politics. Ato Ahoy for energy. There was also Christiana Makunyama for science and tech.
Yeah.
J.H. Owusu Champa for parliamentary affairs.
Yeah.
Charlie.
He was the Kumasi NDC guy.
Yeah.
He was a Kumasi NDC guy. There was also Atu Kwashi for roads. Then there was D.S. Boating. D.S. Boating. I thought D.S. Boating was a statistician.
DS Party.
Somebody should help me here. Was D.S. Boating a minister of government statistician?
I think he was a minister. Was it? For
I thought it was a
employment?
government statistician. Somebody should help me here. Then there was Mary Grant for health. In fact, prior to that, there was even Nana Kwaku Sapong.
Wasn't Brook Manembisa rather health and Mary Grant education?
Hold on.
Or they swap?
Let's take it easy. Emma Mitchell was trade.
Uh-huh.
Mary Grant was health.
So what was Brook Manembisa then?
Brupanisa was, I think, after Mary Grant.
Grant. Okay.
You know, they've always had these.
Hey, Charlie, but Dr. Mitchell, very beautiful.
Emma Mitchell was amazing.
Very beautiful. That's why
amazing.
when you see her on the TV, you're happy.
There were so many. So yes, there was D.S. Boateng was employment and social welfare minister.
Yes, thank you,
and
Percy.
then he became Eastern Regional Minister.
Thank you very much, Percy.
Then there was also a guy called Fred Ohinikena, who was minister for lands and forestry. Fred Ohinikena.
The name I remember.
I even interviewed him once on Citi.
Yeah.
Now, I'm told that around E.T Mensah's time, the other guy who was in charge of sports was Sarah Mensah. So Sarah Mensah was Minister of Sports, I think, under PNDC before E.T took over under the democratic system. Oh wow, so many.
Fred Ohinikena.
You mentioned so many names. All right. Some interesting votes coming in. We're remembering, just to remind those who just tuned in, we're remembering E.T Mensah, Ghana's longest serving sports minister.
Also Madam.
And Madam Theresa Kufuor. So both passed yesterday, 1st October, which incidentally was Nigeria's Independence Day. Here's a vote from Robert. Presidential, okay, says number one. PV was Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs. That was his position under Rawlings. During the PNDC, he was the chairman of the Committee of Secretaries.
Senior House Prefect.
So very powerful and equivalent to Prime Minister. So chairman of the Committee of Secretaries. So like senior minister under Kufuor. Most effective were Kwesi Botwe, according to Robert, Kwame Naahoy as local government, and Obed Asamoah when he doubled as both foreign minister and attorney general. He also says D.S. Boateng was minister for employment and labor relations. So this is Robert's vote. Yao says, institutions always reflect the strength of character of the leader. This is something that we must accept. Institutions never survive on their own strength. I vote for Kwesi Botwe. He dealt with economic problems that exceed any challenges since. The necessary reforms that they carried out were difficult. You know. A few corrections. Mary Grant was education. That's correct. So actually the list I have here, Mary Grant was the... Okay, so let me do it this way.
So we're going to education book.
So when you take PNDC, first education minister was Chris Amataidu, 82 to 83. She was followed by VC Datsun for a brief period and then Joyce Ayi for 85 to 87, right? And then Mohammed Ben Abdallah, Akusi Abdallah's father, was Minister for Education and Culture, 86 to 87. KB Asante also briefly 88 to 89. Mary Grant as well, 89 to 93. So Mary Grant is actually Education Minister for the last few years of the PNDC into the NDC. Now, when it became NDC, Education Minister then was Harry Sawyer from 93 to 97, and then A.C. Sutherland Addy before we had the other people. Let me take a quick interview with the MP for Zebila, who is a very, very senior member of the NDC. Now, why am I calling Cletus Avoka? So, he's been in Parliament, I think he and E.T went to Parliament the same time, I'm not sure, but they've been in Parliament for a long time. Indeed, when in 2013, they were not retained as leaders of Parliament, they were named three wise men. So you had Cletus Avoka, Albang Bagwin, and E.T Mensah, three senior members of Parliament in the NDC who were put in a special category because they were not in leadership, but they were very powerful. So let's talk to Honorable Cletus Avoka now that we have heard of the demise of E.T Mensah. Thank you so much for talking to us, Honorable Cletus Avoka. Please accept our condolences. Good morning.
Thank you, and then good morning to all your listeners. And then my condolences to the bereaved family, and then to all those who are admirers of E.T Mensah.
The nature of media these days requires us to do an interview a few hours after the man has gone. So forgive us for that. But what are your fondest memories of E.T Mensah, and what kind of relationship did you have with him?
Well, let me say that he wasn't with us in the first parliament. I started the first parliament in 1993. E.T joined us in the second parliament. And then at that time, he was also a minister. And then the time I got to know him more closely was in 2009, when I was the interior minister, and E.T Mensah was the chief whip in parliament of the NDC. the chief whip, I was an MP and minister. So, and the practice or the role of the chief whip is to be able to organize members of the caucus to ensure that they attend to the chamber and then they attend to the committees and there's discipline on the floor. So that was E.T Mensah's role. So as interior minister, anytime that I was not able to go to the house, or I was not every morning, I would call him to find out what the program of the house was and whether I'll be needed urgently in the house so that I can leave the work in the ministry and then go to Parliament House. So we had a very active relationship as a result of that. Every day or every other day, we will talk, and then he will say, okay, Minister, you can do your work today. You can come back. You can come this time or come tomorrow, and the rest of them. That's how we work very closely. Then in 2013, when Obama won the election, in fact, in 2010, I went to the Parliament as majority leader and relieved Bagbin from his position. He was the majority leader. So Bagbin went to the Minister of Works and Housing. And E.T also went from chief whip. He became Minister for Employment and Labor Relations. So as a leader of the House, E.T was also consulting me about the activities in the House and then the need for his availability. So that brought us closer together. What was where we actually went very close was in 2013, 2016, when the three of us were asked by John Mahama, John Mahama, to be in charge of the presidential priority projects. By virtue of that, I was to supervise the building of the E block schools. Bagbin was to be in charge of regional referral hospitals, and then E.T was to be in charge of the building of an international airport at Pram area, and then also aerodromes in the various regions, so that medevacs can easily be lifted. So that is how we found ourselves as members of the presidential task force. And then the short and the tall of E.T.'s stature, as I know him, is that one, he is bold, he is courageous, and he is resource-oriented. You recall that he was with the PNDC during the Rawlings era before we went to constitutional rule. And then he was very close to Rawlings. And then you can be close to Rawlings if you are an achiever, if you are an activist, if you are active. And then these credentials were the hallmark of late E.T Mensah. If there was any program that they thought was difficult and they gave to E.T Mensah, he would do it and do it well. He was resource-oriented. And he was very, very bold. There was nobody he could not attack, get close to, and then get the result that he wanted. He was fearless too. And then that is why he could organize the veranda boys of NDC to undertake any activity of the party if nobody could do it. So, and he was a statesman over and above all. And I think that we lost somebody. The people of Ningo Pram, they have lost somebody.
Mm. So we can say this is a man who has spent most of his adult life serving the country.
Exactly. He spent much of his active life, adult life, like you said, serving the country without any blemish. He had done so without any blemish. Mm. And then he had done so, I know he was the chief executive of the Metropolitan Greater Assembly, AMA. And then definitely, if you hold some of these positions, there's no way that you will not step on people's toes if you want to achieve or want to succeed. So no doubt that he was. And therefore, because of such functions, he was also very abrasive. He could be very, very abrasive. And that is if you were standing on the way of success or achieving success. So it is somebody that we will find it difficult to replace now. He has a lot of legacy that he has left behind for us to emulate. He had loyalty, he was very loyal to the NDC, to Rawlings and the NDC, and he was very effective as a minister of state, very effective as a member of parliament. And then no wonder, even though this is an MPP administration and he's NDC, he was able to be elected by the Greater Accra people to the Council of State. I think that we owe E.T Mensah a lot. And then I know that he has even died prematurely. At the age of 72, I'm confident that E.T Mensah could have served Managada for another 10 years. or at least 5 or 10 years before. But
All right. So we are told he was 77.
Oh, 77.
77.
Yes, but he was still very strong and active.
Yes.
And I'm confident that I've known some presidents, some people who have contested presidential election at the age of 88, and then 85, and the rest of them. So E.T Mensah, all things being equal, if God spared him another 5 years, he could have served Mother Ghana and his people. I regret that we have lost him, but at least he has done his due. And then the young ones who are growing up should also emulate the example of people like E.T Mensah on grounds of boldness, bravery, courage, and then loyalty, and then service to the community and then to the country at large.
Thank you for talking to us. We wish you well. That was Honorable Cletus Avoka, MP for Zebila, former minister for many portfolios, served in Ghana's parliament. Is the longest serving member of parliament in our current parliament. He's been in parliament since 1993. He had a 4-year stint where he wasn't there. Few know E.T. in parliament as well as he did. He's been paying tribute to the man, E.T Mensah. We're also remembering Theresa Kufuor, a rather quiet but effective first lady based on the calculations and the analysis Godfred is doing on the studio as well. Remembering both people, we lost both of them last night or yesterday, the 1st of October. And we are also using that as an entry point into some of the names to remember who were Rawlings's most effective ministers. Now, this is a very interesting question because some of them were PNDC, some were NDC. So, for example, Kwesi Botwe was Minister of Finance for PNDC from 1982 to 1993. That's 11 years in charge of a country's finance. So you can say the whole restructuring was under him. 93, then you had Pepra taking over because I think Kwesi Botwe did not join the... actually, no, Kwesi Botwe was minister till 95. And then Kwame Pepra took over from 95 fully till 2001. So Kwesi Botwe, our longest serving finance minister by a mile. Now, think about this, guys. Obeda Samoa was Minister for Foreign Affairs between 1982 to 1997.
He was the what of what?
I mean, Minister for Foreign Affairs between 1982 to 1997. Charlie, I mean, I was born in 1981, right? And I was so basically the year after I was born to the year I reached SSS 2.
Yes.
The guy was Minister for Foreign Affairs, and he combined it with Attorney General between 94 to 2001. That's just, it's incredible, right? And then the other guy, Mahama Idrisu, was Minister for Defense from 93 to 99. A few other names that lasted between the two eras. That's the PNDC to the NDC era. You had... give me a couple of minutes. I'll find some for you. As I said, Kwesi Botwe was 1982 to 1995. All right. And then there was... who else is long serving? So Obimpe was agric for only from 86 to 92.
Is it only?
That's a long time. 1986 to 92. Then he became Minister for Health. And that the... so this is what he was. Obimpe was Minister for Agric 1982 to 1986 to 92. Then from 94 he became Minister for Health to 96. Okay. So basically 86 to 96 he was education, he was agric and then health. Then of course Ibrahim Adam was the deputy and he also then later took over. Let me give you another one that was long serving. So local government and rural development. Kwame Nkrumah for a long time. So it started under PNDC and went into NDC. So basically local government since forever. The only other people who took up, who were in that portfolio prior to him under PNDC was Kufuor for a short stint, Kwame Jumokese, and then one William Yeboah and Kofi Akwa Harrison. Joyce I also served as local government for 2 years But Kwame Nkrumah was the main person from like 89 all the way to 1990 something. Fuel and Power, Ato Ahoy, 87 to 93. Long time. Right? Now, Mahama Idrisu, prior to defense, was actually Minister for Transport and Communications before he became Minister for Defense. All right? And then a few other names that you can say Kofi Totobi Kwache, 1985 to 1993. 1985, Secretary for Information. At some point, we had Atu Austin and Joyce Ayi also in that portfolio. Read a few comments for me as well. For now that we are remembering E.T Mensah in that era.
Okay.
Who else do we remember?
Okay. This one says Ato Ahoy, Energy,
Yeah.
and Mahama Idrisu for defense.
Long standing.
Kofi Ntema says PV was presidential advisor on governmental affairs.
Yeah.
DF Anand was Speaker of Parliament.
Yep.
This one came from Nanare. He says PV Obeng was chairman of the Committee of Secretaries.
Yes.
And effectively all the ministers reported through him. I think we've said that.
Yes.
This one says Honorable Kojo Yanka worked more as deputy when Totobi Kwache was indisposed. Okay.
As Minister for Information.
Yes. Another message says Mary Grant was education and Brookman Emisa was health, right?
Thanks for the correction.
Nee from Accra says, you've done well with the Rawlings ministers, but nobody mentioned Joyce Ayi. I think later.
Yeah, Joyce Ayi had education and also local government. But this was PNDC, not NDC. This was PNDC. There's a name that I just saw in my list. Ni Okainja Adamafio, Interior between 1987 and 1991. That's also a long time. 1987 to 1991.
The longest serving and most effective minister was Dr. Kwesi Botwe, the finance minister.
Yep.
This one says, hi Bernard, environment, science and tech was Dr. Christine Amwakunyama.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember her so well.
Yes.
This one says, the funny thing I heard about E.T. was when then President Rawlings supposedly went to his house and shocked by what he saw and exclaimed in Ghana, "Kwa E.T. Oceane." Says, may he find rest. Paul Efa sent that.
Yeah.
Joyce Ayi was also one of the most effective JJ appointees. That's what somebody said.
Yeah.
This one says Pio Gabra was education minister.
That was under NDC.
That was under NDC.
That was not P.
Yeah, but I think Spio Gabra had this previous position. Was he not ambassador?
So ambassador to America.
Yes.
Yours US ambassador.
Yes, that I remember.
Ambassador to US.
This one says Imam Mitchell was minister for trade and industry.
There were some interesting names as well. Kenelo Seusu, Minister for Interior. Dr. Alex Ababio, Secretary for Health. Mike Gizzo, Minister for Tourism.
Yeah,
Mike Gizzo was Minister for Tourism.
Tourism minister for so many years.
Yeah, we've had some very, very
strong names,
prominent names in the. Of course, it was the time, right? It was the time, and I know that it will be nostalgia to say we want to have ministers like that because they are just one
these are different
TV
times.
station. But I still think if you're a current minister, think about the shoes you are filling. Think about the people who you are taking over from. People have done big things.
Yeah.
People have built things in their image. I mean,
you see, the problem we have with most of these things is most of the time we tend to look at the party colors and not the persons. Okay, so just to line up what you're saying, some people might say, "Oh, NDC4, PNDC4," or somebody might say, "Oh, MPP4, this and that." Okay, but Bernard, if you take some of the names, let's take Mr. Ahoy.
Charlie,
Look,
20 years
for the next, everybody will understand the fact that the local
government system was created by Kwame Nkrumah.
That even if he didn't create it, he impacted it
brutally
more than most. So if you occupy the role, you ask yourself, what do you do? Somebody might say, well, I have only 3 years for it. But the point is, what kind of impact do you leave?
And it's both intellectually and practically. So his book on local government, I still think is the best book.
Yes.
On Ghana's local government system.
I've read it
by a mile.
Yes.
He gives the whole thing.
The whole gamut.
And he's lectured on it effectively. When you talk to him, he's still very, very interested in it.
Okay.
All right. If you take somebody like him,
you take E.T, for instance.
Sports.
Like I'm saying, what he did in the arena of sports, because sports is about achievements, it's about, and we don't have those things.
Keeping local communities happy.
Getting
the people interested.
We do not have those things now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sports portfolio has suffered, in my view,
significantly.
Under the democratic regimes, it's had the highest turnover of ministers. You can count. Kufuor changed them so many times.
Because nobody could do the job.
Edward Osei Kweku, so many changes. Muntaka to under Mills,
and all those things.
Ayariga at some point, Rashid Pelpuo. It's been changing. I think there's some. We even have this guy, Awi. He was also Minister for Sports, your guy. So there's something there that you know. So for somebody to be there for 8 years,
you spoke about defense as well.
Yeah, defense was
for the longest time.
Alhaji Muhammad Idris since forever. Obeda Samwa. I mean, I'll ask if you want to understand the thinking of the PNDC, NDC. Read Obed's book. Obed's book is a political history of Ghana from 1950.
Yes,
I've never seen a book like that. Maybe the E.T Mensah book on Limani years fills a certain gap. But Obed's book, and you know, he publishes official things.
Yes.
He tells you his personal views. Sometimes you put a letter in there. Unbelievable. You know. Unbelievable. So that's Obed. Then there's another guy, Toto Figuachi. Between 1985 to 93. And you know, the basis for what we are doing today, of course, they opposed Tarzan.
Yes.
Heavily. But eventually, under the Bahama NDC, he also became, I think, board chair of NCE also. Yes. So you can say the whole information architecture, Toto Figuachi had a lot to do with it. And he was also doubling as national security at some point. So that's another big name. Then Atu Ahoy was energy.
Yes.
So he
brought Tarzan.
Yes, Tarzan used to work for him.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember the years now.
If I'm not mistaken.
Energy, Tarzan. I'm trying to remember the years. I'm coming. I'm looking for few. Okay, yes. Atu Ahoy, 87 to 93. Charlie, long time. 87 to 93. That's how many years? 6-7 years. Energy minister. He worked with people like, as you said, Tarzan was working for him or with him. There was a guy called Apia Krang who was there before he came.
Yeah. Do you remember Harry Sawyer too?
Yes, Harry Sawyer took over from. Just give me a minute. Education has so many people until Harry Sawyer came. So Harry Sawyer stabilized the education. So education was Ataedu, Joyce Ayi, Ben Abdallah, KB Asante Mary Grant. Then when NDC came,
Mr. Romulus Sawyer,
Harry Sawyer took over. And I remember when I was in GSS 2 or GSS 1, we did a program where he came to speak.
The most that Harry Sawyer carried in this town.
I know what I remember.
Harold Romulus
because
Sawyer.
the workers were always agitating at Legon campus.
Hi, Harry Sawyer.
So when Harry Sawyer,
I am not sure there's any education minister who has chopped more than more.
And when Harry Sawyer comes,
Harold Romulus Sawyer,
and he will wear this fugu
with a beard,
he wear
with his goatee.
White. He had a presence.
The very popular Harry Sawyer song.
And he had a very unique voice.
Sang.
Yes.
He had a very unique voice.
You know,
and way of speaking.
A very animated guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we had people who did a lot of things. Harry Sawyer was a colossus in the educational sector. Of course, Mary Grant did education between 89 and 93. So she was the last education minister under PNDC. And then Harry Sawyer takes over.
And for our generation of young politicians and ministers and whatnot, you know, as we're having this conversation, listening to us at home, in your offices, 20, 30 years, 40 years from now, when
they are doing...
When we are, the next Bernard Avila is in his seat, the next Akoto and the next Nathan.
Will you be remembered?
How will you be remembered?
That's the question.
How will you be remembered?
That's the question.
You see? Will we be having conversations like this about you?
That's the question.
And it's not about the positive or the negative. It's about impact.
Charlie.
You see? So eventually you will be assessed.
Yeah.
Whether you are alive to hear it or not.
It's true.
The most painful part for you will be if you are alive and the conversation is not favorable.
People have served. I noticed something though. Under the democratic regimes, the ministers' tenures became shorter. And think about it. So Rawlings's 19 years can be divided into 2 equal halves.
Yes.
Now, apart from the early 81 to 82 to 84, where things were tumultuous, I think there was a certain stability from 86 So if you look at a lot of the old serving Rawlings guys from 86 to 93, they were in office. There was no change. Do you understand? But when he came into office as a democratically elected leader, because of elections, have you noticed? Because of elections, the things started changing. So the people's tenures became shorter under the NDC because there was 4 years of one government. They have to campaign and all that. So we've lost a bit of stability in terms of having somebody who has institutional memory running the institution for long. And then the Kufuor years became much shorter. So Kufuor will have an average of 2 people, 1 per term. If you look at Kufuor's ministers as well. And then under Mahama and Mills, it became much, much shorter because Mahama's ministers were much different from Mills's ministers. So in a sense, Akufo-Addo has been the one who has kept his ministers a bit longer
yes.
under the democratic regimes because
Yes.
Akufo-Addo's, let's go through them one by one. Which of his ministers have been there from the beginning and have not changed? So Alan resigned, but he kept him from the first term to the
Ken is
second term.
there.
Ken also has been there. His trade minister was the same, who is Alan. His agriculture minister was the same guy, who also then resigned to compete. His energy minister now, Napo, was his education minister.
Yeah.
So he hasn't really changed him. Who was his energy minister in the first term? Okay, that's the Ejako, and then Ameuk took over. So there have been some changes there. His defense minister hasn't changed. It's the same guy. Who else has he had in his position? His transport minister hasn't changed. Right? It's the same guy for the first term. Isiama.
Yeah.
Transport minister hasn't changed.
Terminator.
Minister hasn't changed. Has trade minister changed? Alan
has changed, yes.
has
Sports has changed.
sports has changed significantly.
Isaac Isiama to Mustafa Yusuf.
So just 2. Which other minister is important in Ghana?
He changed Lance.
Who
He
was
changed
Lance?
Frimpong
Lance? So
Boateng.
Lance was Ameu,
Yes.
and now Lance is Jinapo.
Zinapo.
Works and Houses was Atachia. Is now Asenso.
Senso.
Attorney General Akufu, Gloria Akufu to his deputy. This boy was Godfrey Dami. I said this man. Yeah. So you can say that even Akufo-Addo has kept his ministers a bit longer because under the NDC they had shorter tenures. So a lot of changes there. And then local government, who is his minister for local government? Dan Botwe. No, Dan was regional integration.
But it's now local government.
Who was local government in the first term?
What's her name? She's now...
Yes, Hajia.
She's now in the US or something.
Yeah. Tourism in the first term was who?
Awal. It's still been Awal.
No, Awal was the second term. Awal was business development in the second term. First term.
True.
Tourism was... Charlie, we are trying to remember you. So if
We are trying to remember after 4 years.
Health.
That was.
He hasn't changed.
So many hasn't changed.
And the health ministry and the health sector hasn't changed either. It's with him.
Yeah, tourism. Who was the first time tourism minister?
Let me see.
Tourism. Charlie. Somewhere.
If it's Afeku there,
It's Catherine.
Catherine Afeku. Catherine Afeku. Who's been taken over by?
Oh, wow.
Charlie, the current Akufo-Addo ministers need to think carefully about what legacy they will leave. Because you see, nostalgia is easy. The Rawlings guys had a longer time. Okay, but still, because Akufo-Addo has managed to keep something there for long. Because Akufo-Addo has given road minister since 2017 to 2024, essentially. That's a long time to be road minister. Be serious.
I remember Madam Katina Feku for the museum monuments board. Some money got missing.
No, I think she was taken over by some Otin Jesse. So she did no. I think no. It was Otin Jesse.
Was Otin Jesse rather?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, the one who dresses nicely.
Yeah, I think Afeku was a different government.
Yeah, it was Madam Otin Jesse. It's true.
Otin Jesse was the
Barbara.
She took over the first term, and then Awal is the second term. Health is like
Barbara Otin Jesse, Minister for Tourism, Creative Arts and Culture.
Yeah,
at the time.
Communication too has been the same from the beginning. ESLA has not changed.
Yeah.
Where are the
But I thought it was Catherine Afeku who was
No,
tourism.
I
Catherine.
think Catherine Afeku was under Kufuor. I don't know. Somebody needs to help me.
No. Because if you go through.
Or Catherine Afeku was half of the first term or something. You have to help me. Because I think it was Barbara Otin Jesse.
If you.
I think Afeku came first and Otin Jesse took over.
That could be because if
Yeah.
you go through.
So it was Afeku and then Barbara Otinjesi
Yes.
before. So there was something that happened. I think Afeku was not retained. There was some issue.
Some issue.
There was some issue.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So just trying to remember that so in a sense, Akufo-Addo has actually given his people longer time.
Yeah,
He's giving his people longer time.
He's
Because
kept-
I don't think there was anybody significant in Mills who was retained under Mahama. You know, Mills did the first 4 and Mahama did the second 4. Most of them were changed. Akufo-Addo has given some of them even 6 years. He gave the Agric Minister 6 years.
Because,
he
for
gave the
example-
Transport Minister 6 years. He gave the Trade Minister 6 years.
The Finance
He
Minister.
gave the Finance Minister 6 years. Yeah, he's giving a lot of them long time. Long
you
time.
had the Agriculture Minister, he was there
Yeah.
for a while. Matthew Poku Prempeh, doctor, he served in 2 different
Yes.
portfolios, but
Yeah.
he still
He's
got,
giving them a long time.
Yes.
Yes.
Dan Boche,
Damboche was regional reorientation,
And
and then
development.
he then moved on to
then you had Peter Mewu, he has had
yes,
two,
he shifted a bit.
them,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think the point to the ministers and the Akufo-Addo government is that they should be careful.
They should back up.
Because prior to your tenure, a lot of the ministers will have 3 years. Because Mills did reshuffle, Mahama did reshuffles a lot. So he didn't have a lot of them staying over 2 terms. But Akufo-Addo has kept a lot of his people defense. You know?
Yeah.
So the longer you stay, the more time you have to make an imprint. And if you look at the names you are mentioning at the NDC and the kind of things they did, the PNDC guys, you know, you really need you need a lot of, you need to think a lot before you remember which of them has done something significant that you can say. You know, seriously.
I say that this
You know,
setup,
maybe in those days I was younger, so I was easier to impress. You know, but still, I think they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of backing up to do.
yeah.
Yeah. You know. A few names coming up as well. From 1988 to 93, Vida Yeboah was Deputy Minister for Education and Culture. She was very powerful and the main force behind the implementation of the JHS system. Some useful insights coming through this morning from people who know these matters. We also mentioned Mohammed Ben Abdallah, Secretary for Education under PNDC, who, he didn't enter the NDC. He was the PNDC person. I think our voting went off key because people were now voting for people they like, not people who were effective. I think based on what you said, people like Obeda Samoa, Kwame Nahoy, Kwesi Botwe, they have a special place because they define the ministry. Toto Pico actually, they define the ministry. There are few people who define their work like that. Yes, there are few people. Anyway, one day we'll do Kufuor's people. One day.
We will.
One day.
Now, when the opportunity, we don't want these kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, where it is.
But who was your favorite? One of my favorite Kufuor ministers was called Kojo Banredu.
Oh, yes.
I liked him a lot. I remember when I was in the university, when he was education minister, he would just come to the campus. Like he would basically just walk to the campus and be talking to people. It's like, what's happening here? Yeah. He was, I think, first. What was his first position? Local government first. Then they made him finance, and then later on education. Oh no, education and then finance. So local government, education and finance. Yeah. Very effective guy.
Yeah. So you had Anado as foreign minister. You had
first time
Hassan Yakubu. Then
interior.
Hackman for interior.
Hackman was foreign.
You had the Asafuma.
Hackman was what?
Foreign interior.
Interior.
Yes. For wow. Hackman was interior.
No, when Akufo-Addo was Attorney General, Hackman was foreign.
Yes.
Then Hackman became
Hackman was foreign for 2 years, 2001 to 2006.
Because he was one of the highest placed diplomats in the MPP.
Yes.
All right.
Then you had education, Professor Meya Kunfi and Kojo Baredu 2 years.
Then Osafo also went there.
Yes,
I think he had sports,
yes.
and education.
For the World Cup period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you had Dr. Anane and Kwekwe Friye.
Health.
Yes.
Health.
Then you had Major Kwashiga from 2001 to 2005.
Agric.
They had Ismail Ashite.
Did Kwashiga also do health?
Yes.
Kwashiga also did health.
Yes.
Health minister.
Ismail Ashite did fisheries.
Yes. Then you had trade and industry, Kofi Kunodo Apreko and Alan K.
So Kofi Kunodo briefly and Alan K took over.
Alan 2003-2007.
Yeah.
Then you had local government and rural development. You had Kojo Barre.
So actually, Alan is our longest serving trade minister, because even if you compare to NDC, there was nobody who's had the trade ministry portfolio like Alan.
Yes. And then you had Park Sindum as Minister for Economic Planning.
Yes.
Again for 2 years, 2001 to 2003.
Yeah.
Then you had Cecilia Bannerman.
Yeah.
Power, Development and Employment.
Yeah.
You had Kanda Power Energy for 2 years. And then Park Sindum also for 2 years coming in.
Yeah, for energy.
Yes, you had Lands, Mines and Forestry, Kwekwe Free and Professor Fubi.
Kwekwe Free is still minister.
Yes.
I think he's now minister for environment.
Yes.
Dominic Fubi was also lands.
Yes.
And Kufuor.
And then Yakwam Nabatels under Works and Housing, and then Mustafa Idris Ali.
Ali Idris, he was a Tamale mayor at some point as well.
Yes. Then you had Hawa Yakubu Tourism.
Yeah.
For a year, and then Jake.
Kufuor had strong people too.
Yes. And you know, Jake left a huge imprint in that ministry as well.
I think Jake is the one who defines the tourism ministry. Most of the tourist sites I go to, you will see his name. And he did a lot of diaspora things.
Yep.
So Jake had a real vision for that.
Yes.
He was working with a guy called Ferdinand Deyim.
Yes, his
Great guy.
Yes.
We lost him in some accident.
Yes,
Really
and then
sad.
J.H. Mensah, Public Sector Reform and National Institutional Renewal, that also came from.
So I think J.H. Mensah is...
they like setting up strange ministries.
No, but J.H. Mensah is probably your equivalent, or it's a mixture of Kwesi Botwe and P.V. Obeng in one.
Yes.
I think he was Kufuor's most senior person, most accomplished guy. I mean,
and his younger sister was the first lady.
Yes. So J.H. Mensah and Kufuor
oh, I didn't get that.
Theresa's big brother was
oh, thank you for reminding me.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I knew, I just forgot.
Kept it in the family, you know.
Oh. J.H. Mensah was Kufuor's most accomplished economic mind.
Yeah.
That without a doubt.
Yeah, then you had Felix also Japan. Transport and Comms.
Yes.
Kandapa.
Did I tell you that Felix also Japan and PV Obeng and Akwede were in the same SRC executive?
Oh, how?
Attack.
If you read Ivan Samfom's book, when Ivan Samfom was the vice chancellor of UST, his SRC president was PV Obeng, the SRC secretary was Felix also Japan, and Akwede was also an SRC executive. And he said they were the most effective student leadership team he worked with. So he had a photograph of them in his book.
Let me wrap this up.
I interviewed him in 2005.
Let me wrap this up for you. And then you had Jake also as Minister of Info for a while.
Yeah.
Then Nana Kumia also coming, so did quite well. Then did descend.
He's remembered a lot for his information ministry work.
And then Minister for Youth and Sports, remember Malam Issa?
Oh, he was jailed.
Yes.
He was jailed.
Yes.
I think Malam Issa's era brought in the tumult.
Yes.
It's almost like no minister has had peace.
Yes. Nobody has had peace.
Something happened in that ministry.
Malam Issa changed the
Maybe the FMBO mafia, the minister, and then
ministers.
The turnover has been so high.
And then you had Minister of State for Media Relations at the time, who is still doing media relations.
Who?
Madam Elizabeth Ohene.
Okay, so she was minister, but I thought there was a guy called. So what was this guy's name? Awuni.
Andrew was spokesperson.
So was Andrew working with Kwame Japan? No, because Andrew was information minister.
No, Andrew wasn't. Andrew was spokesperson.
Spokesperson for the president.
Yes.
After Kwame Japan.
I'm trying to remember.
After Kwame Japan.
Yes.
So who was information minister under Kufuor?
That period.
Did they have communication minister too?
Yes. Communications and transport. Felix also Japan.
Okay, so they have communications and transport.
Yes, put together.
Okay. Because the NDC, they like joining information and communication.
Yes.
And then NDP will join communication and transport.
Yes, and I had Madam Christine Churcher for what is now gender. So then it was for primary, secondary, and girl child education.
Okay.
But I'm looking at that Minister of State Media Relations, Madam Elizabeth.
Oh, stop that.
But she's still working on.
She writes.
As Minister, she's still doing media relations.
Yeah, the thing is that if you're a journalist, you can never stop writing. So let's keep writing.
It's the right.
So that even if we are not on air, we can still write.
No, hey. Her last write-up was...
No, so I'm right. Awuni was also Deputy Minister for Information.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but he wasn't full minister.
Yeah, he was deputy. And then... well, let's read a few comments. Look, this one is more nostalgia. Oh, so J.H. Mensah's sister is Kufuor's wife?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow. So condolences to the family.
Yes.
Atu, I heard, was the brain behind rural electrification. He remembered for that. This is coming in from a listener.
I forgot to. Kufuor did defense ministry for 8 years. Oh.
Quietly.
Very.
Quietly.
I would know.
You know, defense, they don't change it a lot.
I would know.
Because a certain W. Buff was a deputy. Was he also deputy for 8 years? But you know, as I said about, Muhammad Idrisu, some portfolios don't like change. So you
Yes.
keep, so Mills had brigadier general something, some general. It was only Muhammad Tana changed, where you had General Smith.
Yes.
Muhammad had Benkumbo and somebody else.
But man, you see, there are certain positions
You don't
that
change it.
should not come. It should not come with change. It should not come with noise. You see,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
unless there is something significant that has happened
Yeah,
in a
you're right.
democracy, why is the army on the front page of a newspaper?
Yeah, I shouldn't. You're right. So it shouldn't be news that
It shouldn't be, you know,
the defense minister doesn't change.
it doesn't change.
Because you need that stability and that continuity. I agree with you on that
Yeah.
one. Bernard Oreku Amofa and Maigizo packaged and introduced Panafest. Okay, this is somebody's view. Look, everybody's telling me what they want.
First, Mr. Yanka will not be happy with you.
Because Panafest was mid-90s.
Mid-90s,
I remember my dad worked at the Panafest Secretariat.
All right.
So this
I'm
was-
being told that Nyama Donko was cast in the mode of Banredu. Personable and engaging, much loved, good public endorsement, very effective.
But Barredu's effect there, Charlie.
No, but I'm told Nyama Donko was like that.
But
Under
Barredu
NDC.
was on a different level. Oh.
You know, in the Kufuor government, Banredu was given all the difficult tasks. Because I remember when Osafo Mafu had to be moved.
And it wasn't because he had good PR. You see,
He was an effective
He
guy.
was
But he also had good PR.
no. Barredu's PR was born out of his ability to make change.
No, but I'm saying that he was also good with the media.
Yes.
He was good with the media, but he was also very...
Because Barredu, when he comes to talk to you, is delivering results.
Yes, but the point is that he was not a snob,
Oh, I understand that.
which helps.
But I don't want. I'm also putting the way he wasn't just a sweet talker.
Yeah, I get you. He
There were a lot
wasn't
of sweet talkers in the system.
Yeah. He wasn't a nice guy. He was actually an effective guy.
Yeah. These days we have a lot of sweet
And
talkers
you know, he
who
was
are doing shelly.
he did so much for the Kufuor government. He died too early. And I remember when he died, even Rawlings was so sad. And in fact, he's one of the people whose death
Agogo.
got a lot of cross-partisan, bipartisan. I think he died in 2007. Yeah, way too early. Oh, Kojo Banredu. May he rest in peace.
And Madam Theresa Kufuor, may she rest in peace.
As-
Like I said, a very
as
different kind of first lady.
Yes,
And also E.T Mensah.
yes.
It's
yes.
been that kind of morning.
Yeah. And
We have a message that is making you smile. Eh?
no. We are just remembering some names. Apparently, Eddie Akita was deputy briefly before W. Buafu took over.
Okay.
So when Buafu took over, he made it his position.
You need to do a job quietly.
So E.T Mensah served under Buzia as finance minister as well.
Yes.
So you can see that his experience. In fact, he wrote the foreword to the 7-year development plan.
Yes.
Do you know that?
Yes.
Do you know how old he was?
How old was he?
29.
You know. Okay.
Charlie. The guy did form. E.T Mensah was great.
Senna from Adina says, "Good morning, guys. Have you noticed that the names of the ministers cut across the regions? Good representation.
Yes.
But now Ghana Yenyama. When someone says, oh, don't forget at Austin, original.
Atu Austin.
Youth and sports.
Atu Austin, yes.
Okay.
Atu
Good
Austin.
morning, guys. See, all these ministers were good. I was a kid, but I still remember their names. We had Gizo, Mr. Makunyama, Spio, E.T Mensah, the Hoy brothers, and a lot more.
Yeah.
Now we don't even remember these current ministers. Someone says, I vote for Harry Sawyer. Somebody who was really in charge of education.
Hey, the strikes were many.
The DJ Fire. Charlie Fire.
Harry said, do something.
Strikes, Harry chop strike. The man frustrates.
It was always the line of fire.
I think for me,
Yes.
growing up, the strike that stayed with me was at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Is it my
there-
brother's struggle?
Yeah, there was this national jet, and they said they had increased user fee.
Yes.
And
So you know, don't forget the universities were the hotbed of opposition as
Oh,
well.
yes.
So they were some of those things were basically opposition to the Rawlings government.
I
And the
remember.
educational minister was stopping stray bullets.
Harry Sawyer there is suffered. And at the time, they used to caricature him in the
Oh
news.
yes,
Charlie.
the Chronicle would draw some picture of some beard.
Chronicle.
Charlie.
Chronicle.
Chronicle no try.
Charlie, they will give him the beard. No, they can stab you with the beard.
And the beard was long, man.
And then just two more messages, if you don't mind.
Yes,
This
yes.
one says the master stroke of Kwame Ahoy was the establishment of the Local Government Act 462 1993, which established the district assembly concept structure as we have it now, with the DC, the DCD, assembly members, etc., etc. He championed it, Kofi from Kumasi. Because it's one of my most memorable secretaries was in Debugri. Memorable event being when he defied Jerry at an event with regards to the national anthem. This one also says there was a lady called Theresa Kufuor, deputy to Ato Ahoya Fuel and Power, deputy to Dr. Kosibochi, and deputy governor to Dr. Agama at the Bank of Ghana. Hey,
let me just give you the sports ministers so you remember. So for Rawlings, 82, 83 is Ayebo. 83 to 86, Amaka Yamati. You remember the Azuma fight?
The Azuma fight.
And then Atu Austin, 86 to 92. Arnold Kwenu, 92 to 93 briefly.
Briefly, yes.
Then there was a guy called Mausi
Dake,
who was in charge of the National Defense Committee. Then there was a guy called Akresi Sapong, who was in charge of the PDCs and WDCs, Defense Councils and People's Councils. Then there was, Charlie, very interesting name. So, Secretary for Labor and Social Welfare, we had Atu Austin, who did that briefly, before D.S. Boatin took over.
Okay.
Secretary for Water, Kwaku Sapong, this is PNDC time now. E.G. Tano, before Air Commodore Kluche. Science Technology, we had Francis Akwa and then KB Buta. Lands, Kwame Pepra and J.A. Danso. Secretary for Roads and Highways, Yao Donko, Mensak Bedema, Richard Kome. Very interesting names. Kwame Pepra was also Transport and Communications. And then, of course, as I said, Fuel and Power.
Would E.T also be the longest serving mayor of Accra?
Let me check.
Because 80, let me see.
He was mayor of Accra.
82?
From 92.
From E.T? Mayor of Accra?
No. Before 92.
Yes.
Before 92, in the 80s.
Yes.
I don't even know that's an official position.
Okay, then that's...
I'm trying to check it. I'm not sure.
Those who lived during that time, let us know.
Charlie, small boys are young. All right, guys.
Thank you.
So it was 82 to 91. Mayor of Accra, 82 to 91.
Hey! Ah! No.
1982.
He ran this town.
So the flags at the AMA should be flying at half mast this morning.
Hey!
The flags at the Ministry of Sports and the flags at the AMA should be flying at half mast. 82 to 91.
E.T. Oceane.
82 to 91. Serious. That's serious.
Thank you.
That's serious.